Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus.
LVX777 Chaos.
These are the two fundamental forces of existence as we know it. Specified. Because we're interpreting reality based on the equipment that we have to work with. And the equipment that we have to work with is the subject of today's video, namely matter, energy. Now, all this points to the question of who are you? What are you? Right? What is you? In order to understand metaphysical concepts, right? Because meta means above and beyond. Metaphysical concepts. To understand that, we have to have some vantage point, some perspective. And to see things clearly, you've got to have a solid understanding of where your vantage point is. What do I mean by this? Well, I'll ask you this question first and foremost. What are you? What is you? Where does the line begin and end between the environment and what you consider you? Where's the line drawn? Is the line drawn at the body? Or is it drawn somewhere more subtle? You tell me. Peace and greetings to everybody here present for this live stream. Peace to Star 666. Peace and greetings, Star Lion. Gerald Sombright, peace and greetings. So, hopefully this is a question that you've asked yourself before. Hopefully this is something that you have thought about with consideration, right? Because like I said, in order to really understand metaphysical concepts, you've got to have a vantage point, and there has to be some understanding of where the line is drawn between your environment and whatever the hell you are. Amar Ahmad, peace, peace. Banyato Tamashi, peace. Zero, peace. So it's levels, right? There's levels to it. When you think about you, most of us think about our body. And those of us who have done some work, we draw the line at mind, right? Because the mind is its own distinct wavelength. Just like the body is its own distinct wavelength. Just like your room, your home, your vehicle, all your belongings, right? That's a specific wavelength. And the outside world that you exist in, that's a specific wavelength. Amar Ahmad says most people limit mind to brain as well. Right, in choice of words. When I say mind, I'm speaking about the subtle tool that we use to think, right? It's the laboratory of thought. The mind is that space that we use to think thoughts. I'm not talking about the brain, because honestly, the brain is a part of the body. I drew a little diagram. Take a look at it. Take a look at this diagram. Let me know if it's backwards or whatever. So think about this now. In the top left corner, I have the word consciousness circled, right? The word consciousness circled at the very center. Maybe you can draw this yourself, just so you can have something to look at and think about. In the top left corner, or top right corner, it might be backwards, there's consciousness. Now, as a layer drawn on the outside of that is mind, right? And I said that mind is that laboratory of thought. Because when you think about the mind, who's doing the thinking? You got mind. Now, as a layer wrapped around that is body. And we know what the body is, hopefully. The physical tool that you use to experience this world. Then outside of body, we have, what does that say? Immediate environment. And in parentheses, I have your life, the immediate environment. And I'll group that with what you call your life. Like I said, that's your room, that's your home, that's your vehicle, that's your workplace or school, the little bar or club you go to on the weekends, right? All that would constitute your immediate environment, your life. And then as a circle on the outside, we can relegate everything else, right? The general public, the outside world, everything else, right? So take a look at that, right? And maybe you might find a distinction somewhere else. Maybe you might find another layer to fit in between one of these spaces. But pretty much, I think it can be singled out to this distinction here. Now the question is, where are you in all of that? In all of those different levels, what is you? What is you? The ancient texts talk about how there's essentially two fundamental forces in existence, and those two forces are consciousness and energy. Now, we can say that matter is a form of energy. It's a form of condensed and very slowly vibrating energy. The outside world would most definitely be considered matter, energy. Your immediate environment and all the things and places and people in it would be considered energy. Your body is composed of energy, right? Solidified into organs, flesh, bones, and blood. In fact, the mind can even be considered a form of energy. Is that true or is that false? The mind can be considered a form of energy. And which one of those is you? Because beyond that level of mind, there begins to be a separate thing, a different thing. Consciousness. Consciousness is not found in the body. It's not found in the environment. Some would even say that consciousness isn't even local. Isn't even local. Where are you? From, if you meditate, if you sit down and you're still and you analyze what's happening within and without, when you analyze what's going on, you'll quickly start to see that these different levels represent different vibrational frequencies. Some that are closer to the essence of you, and some that are further away from the essence of you. Personally, I consider mind, body, environment, and outside world as one thing, all one thing. This body is a part of this environment, and this environment is part of the outside world. It's all one thing. This mind is part of this body. So where are you at in this configuration? Where do the memories fit? Where does the personality fit? What are those things built of? What are they composed of? Lasange Descote, peace. Sunshine Chick, always good to see you. Framestar Films, peace, my brother. So what do you think? Somebody talk to me. Tell me in the chat, what are your thoughts on this topic, on this subject matter? MC Maestro, peace. Did you ever find Sitarak? Because she says, peace, Travis. I noticed I was dialing a bit off on my practices, but now we're getting back to it with a clearer vision and a stronger will. Awesome. We were born to win. We were built to win. What we are at our essence is victory itself. The more that we attach to matter, the more that we attach to the manifest, the more we learn what failure is, what it means to lose, and how to perpetuate being a loser. That's why it's so easy to fall into that. Minosis, peace. Minosis says, part of Prakriti, the forever changing, cause in the effect, effect in the cause. Absolutely. Absolutely. So look, we talk about non-attachment, we talk about karma, right? There's some people who don't like the word karma. They say that karma isn't real because it hurts their feelings. Oh, I don't believe in karma because I don't want to be held accountable for my actions, etc., etc. You can't expect most people to understand any of this content. It's easy to hear these words and take certain buzzwords of your choice and, attach it to your shirt like a pin. The same way that Christians use Christianity in Bible verses, you might cherry pick a few that you like, that justify what you're doing anyway, and then continue to beat other people across the head. But the truth of the matter is, the culture and system that created the concept that we know of as karma didn't make that as a explanation for punishment and reward. In fact, the word karma relates more to the process of cause and effect. When one thing is set in motion, it continues in that motion. Now, that motion may manifest in different forms, but motion is the language and the essence of Prakriti. Ever flowing, ever changing. And that is the concept of chaos, that concept of the divine feminine. Ever creating, ever creating. Energy in itself is just a mix of different forms and different qualities. There's no static, there's no constant, at least not at the level of where we are. You've got to zoom out and see it as a big picture. And what you'll find is that matter, Prakriti, energy, the divine feminine, all this is this ever-changing substance that is continually moving. It never began and it never stops. That's just what it is. Movement. Now, consciousness is, for lack of a better word, observing this movement. It's observing this movement. It is not inherently a part of this movement. What Kabbalah teaches us is that the movement of Prakriti being observed by consciousness, that movement is a reflection of consciousness. It's a reflection. It's Prakriti's best attempt at recreating the observer. What comes to mind is the double slit experiment, and how they say that the result is affected by whether or not one is observing it. I'm sure we've all heard of that double slit experiment by now. Framestar Film says the phrase stream of consciousness might be a good starting point. Absolutely. Stream of consciousness. The point I'm making is that this whole thing about consciousness, it is not in matter. It's not in matter. So you got to think about this sin, right? Original sin. And do I need to do this to become that? Do I need to tap into this spirit or this spiritual system in order to manifest XYZ? There's a certain level of realization that has to be reached. And that level of realization is that things are changing on their own without your involvement. And when you really think about your involvement and that chart that I just showed, at what level does your involvement exist? Is not the body part of this changing environment? Is not the mind a part of this changing environment? Are you able to pinpoint the cause behind your intentions, the cause behind what you actually do? If you're not able to pinpoint it, then who's to say that the cause isn't inherent within the matter? In other words, what if what you're experiencing here with this body and with this mind is simply a process that was already set in motion long before you became aware of it? Could it be that we continue to entangle ourselves because we believe that we are the cause? So we feel responsible for the effect. What did you really start? Again, you have to go back to the definition of what is you. What is you? Where are you at? If you believe you're the body, then you're going to take on the karma associated with the matter that has created the body. If you believe that you're the mind, then you're going to take on the karma associated with that thing called mind. That's why the Vedic information talks about vairagya, which is non-attachment, and understanding that you are not the body, you are not the mind, you're not your environment, you're not any of this. All this stuff was happening already, with or without you. With or without you. And that's not to say that this is just haphazard. There's certainly a system of organization if you pay attention to it. There's certainly a system of organization that can be tracked. Il Mago. Il Mago. Lila S. Peace, peace. My gnosis says, I was just talking about this. I can pinpoint the cause and the nimitta karana that brought me to your page, that having me tap into the Vedic and the tree. Yeah. Where do I end and where do I begin? I'm going to get a book real quick. There's a book that has some pictures in it and also some words that I'd like to show. Before I do that, let me know, does the image come through reversed or does it come straight up? Are the words reversed here? If so, I might have to reverse the camera. Are the words reversed or are they straight? They're straight? Thank you. All right, cool. I'm going to grab a book about tarot. I'll be right back. Yummy, yummy. Zero says, sometimes I had a feeling of everything is doing it for itself and I'm just playing the game, but it's the unconscious that is the director. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the point that I am trying to make here, right? And also, aside from that, when you consider that, how does that impact your realization of what karma might be? How does that impact your realization of what life is? How does that impact your realization of how manifestation works? Right? Like when you think about that, how does that impact what you previously or currently believe about how reality works? Let me get that book. Boniato Tamashi says it makes me think about the law of vibration. Yeah. I like that. G Supreme says a quote here: "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Carl Jung. Absolutely right. Absolutely. Peace, Capri. Good to see you. Framestar Film says, "Is the notion of being conscious or aware the same as what we try to understand as consciousness? I think, therefore I am, as someone said." Yeah. So this is a book that is called 123 Tarot. You can get it if you want. I got a whole bunch of tarot books. This is one of them that I was studying. I try to study these at least once a week so I can stay caught up on my tarot definitions. And there are some things in this book that I don't agree with 100%, but generally there's good information here, right? If you're someone trying to learn tarot, I would say this is one that would be good to add to the collection. But in any case, I was going through the major arcana, and as I read, I noticed that they all kind of line up with the different stages of the Tree of Life. And while some could say, okay, well, you got 0, which is the Fool, and then you got 1, so that must line up with Kether. In truth, let's see. Let's start with Il Mago. This is what I kept saying Il Mago yesterday. The Mage's card. And you see in the corner of the card, it has the name in different languages, like Italian and Spanish and German and whatever else that is. Peace curve. So looking at the Il Mago, and when I read the meaning of it, I thought that was really cool because I think that truly highlights what the Magus is, what working with magic is all about. And what it says here is just a brief description. The Magus represents skill in the secret ways of nature and the hidden motives of humanity. Skill in secret ways of nature and the hidden motives of humanity. So I think about the secret ways of nature. What are the secret ways of nature? What does that mean? What does that mean, right? We're talking about the different ways of the elements. I mean, why are there the pentacle, the cup, the sword, and the wand on the table? The secret ways of nature, talking about the relationship of the elements, talking about different patterns of manifestation. You've heard the formula Yod He Vav He, right? Jehovah. It's not a name, it's not a title, it's a formula. And it's a formula of how subtle matter relates to dense matter, right? That's what the secret is behind the 4 elements: subtle matter to dense matter. And understanding those 4 stages of dense matter up to subtle matter, what you'll find is that different things work differently if they're assigned to one of those different labels. Concrete asks, do you think our electromagnetic field is emitted by the cells of the body based off the neurochemistry in our bodies? Sorry if super random. I mean, yeah, that would make sense, right? That's what science tells us. Yeah, so the secret ways of nature. And the secret ways of nature, we're also talking about the cycles of the moon. We're talking about the different influences of the planets in their places. We've mentioned this before. When it comes to astrology, it's not that the planets cause you to do anything. No, the movement and the placement of the planets is a reflection of the energy that's already on the menu today. Nature and Prakriti is nothing but this gigantic soup of movement, right? Gigantic soup of movement. And the way that we can read that movement is by looking at nature herself. She tells us all the time what's on the menu. She tells you can look at the birds in the sky and you can tell if it's about to rain, right? You can see how the bugs are acting, how the lizards are acting. You can tell how the trees are acting and say what season it is. You know, before we had computers and internet and clocks and cell phones, we had to read the secret ways of nature to understand what time it was, right? Daytime or nighttime, what season is it? All this is understanding the ways of nature. The other part of this was the hidden motive. What are the hidden motives of humanity? Tell me about that. What are the hidden motives of humanity? What comes to mind when I say that word or that phrase? Animali says, loving this music. The vibes are vibing. Oh yeah. Something about elves and fairies. Peace off Molly. Off Molly says, been watching you for a while. Sometimes watch off psychedelics. You've helped me a lot in my life. So much love, my brother. In soul. Peace, peace. Artemis in Theory. Good to see you. So what does this mean? What does this phrase mean? Lasange Descotes says the hidden impulses that drive humanity. Yes, yes. Capri says pleasure and pain. Fat Tony says to trick the tricks, right? Gerald Sombright says feeding, fighting, fucking. Thank you, right? When we talk about the hidden motives of humanity, we're talking about shadow work. We're talking about neurolinguistic programming. We're talking about subtle influence. We're talking about the patterns of mind. If you don't understand how influence works, you think that all people are individually different and not related. But when you study psychology and you study the mind and you study the hidden motives of humanity, you'll start to find patterns. And here's what's being said. There are patterns. In order to be a successful magus, in order to be a magician, in order to be somebody who works with this stuff, what you're actually doing, just like if you call yourself a football player, you're somebody who plays football. If you call yourself a painter, you're somebody who paints. If you call yourself a musician, you're someone who performs music, who creates music. If you call yourself a magus, somebody who works with the secret ways of nature and the hidden motives of humanity. If you study psychology, you'll find that there are patterns in how the mind works and how personalities interact with each other and how they interact with their environment. Shadow work is a necessary aspect of magic. It's a necessary aspect of the spiritual practice. There's no avoiding it, because the unhealed aspects of your shadow will most definitely filter through everything you do. And the healed aspects of your shadow will filter through everything that you do. In large, depending on how much inner work you've done to heal yourself will depend on your success in this field of work. If you've done no work when it comes to healing yourself, your results will be limited. They'll be limited. They'll be limited by your triggers, your insecurities, your fear, your doubt, and all those things that cause you to revert back to your animal state. To be awakened, right? I was talking about being awakened and being enlightened and all that good stuff. What does that mean? What are you being awakened from? You're being awakened from your beast mentality. You're being awakened from the animal that you have identified with all this time. See, it's the human body is an animal. That's why I labeled it in a separate category. It's an animal that your consciousness, for whatever reason, just so happens to be observing. Right? And the way that your consciousness interacts with the human animal is through the faculty of mind. The mind is a device. It's a technology that we use to manipulate this body. The same way that you play a video game. A video game has an environment that some designers created. You got the ground, you got some walls and some trees and some objects to interact with. But being a person in this world, you can't just interact with that 3D world without some type of apparatus. So an avatar is created in that video game. So here's the avatar that is made of the same stuff that the video game is made of, right? The avatar is made of the same stuff that the video game is made of, but it doesn't stop there. Now we need some type of interface so that the user can manipulate the avatar so that the avatar can manipulate the environment. This is where we have the mind. So consciousness uses the mind a whole lot like a video game controller to manipulate the avatar, the character in the game. And in order to be successful in any game, you got to understand the rules. You have to understand the objective. You have to understand the purpose of this whole thing. What are we doing here? So that's Il Mago. Il Mago. After Il Mago, we've got the High Priestess, right? You've seen her before. And by the way, the way that I got into this is I was saying that this relates to the Tree of Life. So honestly, if we go to the Fool, we could relate the Fool to Kether. We could relate the Fool to the very top of the tree. And the very next Sephiroth from Kether would be Hawkma. And of course, we could relate that to the Magician, right? Because it's the divine masculine aspect. The divine masculine aspect that actually brings order to the chaos. It's the divine masculine aspect that goes into this field of substance. And this field of substance is nothing specific, right? If you think about, okay, so Kether is unmixed, and it is pure, and it is unconditioned reality. There's no conditions, there's no forms, there's no shapes, there's no patterns. It's just pure existence. That's a vibration, that's a level. That's one of the highest levels that we can be at. If you're observing this and you zoom in some more and you lower the vibration just a bit, what happens now is that oneness splits into two-ness. It splits into what we call masculine and feminine. Now, at no point did we talk about titties, vaginas, dinglings, none of that. What happens when we have this separation between divine masculine and divine feminine, what we have is, on one hand, with the divine feminine, there's pure creation and things are just being created. But here's the thing, you got to think abstract. Nothing specific's being created. It's just combination and dissolution. Things are coming together and separating, right? This is the forms of Prakriti, just moving and meshing and swirling. The divine masculine aspect is that which takes the potential of that chaos and gives it specific shapes, specific direction, specific forms that begin to create actual identifiable patterns, right? And that's going to be the Magus. So let's get to the High Priestess. Let's get to the High Priestess. With the High Priestess, it talks about mystery of the hidden sources of higher knowledge, right? Veiled mysteries of higher understanding are revealed to the wise, but remain hidden from those who approach with conceit. You have to be utilizing that mind of yours in a certain kind of way to unlock the secrets of nature. You You've got to be utilizing your mind in a certain kind of way to unlock the hidden patterns and hidden intentions of humanity. This is what I'm saying. If you're a part of it, if you identify as a part of the game, you're not going to unlock the rules. You have to be the player in order to unlock the rules. Do you see the difference? If you're in it and mixed up in it, right? If you're caught up in the drama, caught up in the Drake and the Kendrick and the Diddy and whatever else people are talking about today, because there's going to be something different tomorrow, those things keep you locked in it. So a percentage of your awareness and your consciousness is focused only on things that don't matter. Not really. So you have to come to a level where you're above that and you're looking down at it, right? You're looking down at, instead of being mixed in with the drama, you see what's really happening behind the drama. You see the energy that's playing out. It's not about rat beef between Kendrick and the other guy. You're seeing energies play out. You got to be able to identify that, right? Even when it comes, think about this, right? Why do there have to be presidential elections at a specific time as a pattern, as a cycle, as a loop? These are the shifting and cycling of the energies. The energies have to be shifted out at that specific rate, right? The same way that the sun rises and goes back down. That's a cycle of pattern. Everything here is a pattern and a cycle. And you got to be able to be out of that pattern and look down at it in order to identify what's happening with it. If you're not at that level where you're looking at the patterns of energy, if you're not at the level where you can't see the energy behind the forms, then you don't have the keys to unlock the mystery. That's what the High Priestess is all about. That's what the High Priestess is all about, right? That's why she sits there. And think about the moon also. The moon is a representation of patterns. What I said before in my previous video is how to get really good at magic. You've got to expand your library of correspondences. You got to know what these symbols mean. What's the moon mean, right? What do these different symbols mean? The moon itself, just look at how she behaves. She changes, but she changes on cycle, right? You know, every 7 days, she's going to be either new, waxing, full, or waning. She's going to be one of those 4 stages. It's locked in, just like the sun is locked in. You got to be able to look at these patterns and not be a part of the pattern. Because look, the animal body is a part of the pattern. And as long as you identify with the animal body, then you are subject to those patterns. You're under dominion of those patterns. So you got to rise above that animal body. That's why we're able to have things like the different branches of science or the different branches of philosophy. Those are works of the mind. Those are works of the mind analyzing nature and analyzing human behavior. But guess what? There's a level even above mind. And if you are able to reach that level above mind, you can analyze the patterns of mind instead of being caught up in mind. There's a certain point when you're meditating regularly that you transcend mind. And it's at that level that you start reaching spiritual gnosis. You got to transcend the patterns of mind to be able to see the patterns of mind. Do you understand that? So, from Il Mago to La Papisa, the next point that we have is the Empress. Now, here's another thing with the major arcana. The major arcana, they do work in pairs as well. And what you'll find is that what we're actually doing is we're moving down, and we're lowering the vibration. And you're seeing reflections. So at the top, you can see the Fool. See the Fool in the place of Kether, at the crown of this whole diagram. And if you look at the Fool card, he is often, well, I can say he, but it's even an androgynous type of being. But when you go down, and that's why it's a 0 as well. But when you go down a vibration, now it splits into 2 branches. On one side, the divine masculine force, and on the other side, the divine feminine force. So the next pair that you see from the Fool is the Magician and the High Priestess. When you go down, guess what you see next? The Empress and the Emperor, right? So it continues to bounce down like that. You're seeing the same energies, but on a lower diagram, on a lower scale. So let's get to the Empress. When you talk about the Empress, I found this really interesting, his definition of it. La Imperatrice. It says vitality of impregnation within the receptive place of development creates new forms that issue forth in a natural and orderly manner, with nourishment from their source sustained and strengthened. It says the vitality of nature expresses itself by the endless birth of new forms. The endless birth of new forms. We're talking about Prakriti here. We're talking about Shub Niggurath. We're talking about Gaia. The vitality of nature expresses itself by the endless birth of new forms, and, if allowed to expand without constraint, may give rise to extreme mutations. Those of you who know Kabbalah, what Sephiroth would that sound like? What Sephiroth would that sound like? It says, the vitality of nature expresses itself by the endless birth of new forms. That sounds like expansion, doesn't it? And if allowed to expand without constraint, may give rise to extreme mutations. Where are we at on the tree when I talk about that? Somebody gets a golden cookie if you get it right. There we go. Thank you, Lasange Decote. Thank you, MC Maestro. It's Chesed. It's Jupiter. Absolutely. So when you think about that expansion and that growth, yes, it can be abundant because we all want more things, but you can also see how it can be detrimental, how it can be terrible. There are some things that you do not want to grow, right? There are some things that you do not want to grow, which is why the fifth element has to come into play. Because what's on the other side of Jupiter? What's on the other side of Chesed? The mighty sword. In this case, we're dealing with the Emperor. The Emperor comes next. Veronica Archaga, peace. I love you. So the general meaning here of the Emperor, firm leadership provides stability and order, but too much firmness leads to the loss of freedom. So now, first of all, let's look at the dichotomy here of the Empress, who is continually just giving birth, right? We're not talking about a woman sitting down on the throne who's pregnant. We're talking about a very primordial aspect of Prakriti herself, a very primordial aspect of Prakriti, just continually giving birth, just continually creating, just continually combining forms together, combining different forms together just as quickly as she can squeeze them out. So it takes the Emperor to step in and to provide stability and order. In other words, deciding what does get to live and what does not get to live, deciding what goes to the left and what goes to the right, giving direction to the chaos. The Empress and the Emperor represents chaos and order. Chaos and order on the lower frequency. Because if you look on a higher frequency, you've got the Magician and the High Priestess. And what the Magician was dealing with, he wasn't dealing with anything manifest. He was dealing with the concept of knowing the hidden patterns of nature, knowing the hidden patterns of man as a species. The High Priestess, it says specifically, the higher secrets, the higher mysteries. So those two were not in manifestation. They were talking about two aspects of a higher state of existence. The Emperor and the Empress are expressing those same types of energies, but they're closer to matter. So now we're going to start seeing forms. Now, another interesting thing here is, even though we can equate the Empress to Chesed's activity and Chesed's behavior, she's actually the Sephiroth, or excuse me, she's actually the path that connects Bina and Chokmah. So we know that specifically, did I say Chokmah? Yeah, Bina and Chokmah specifically are divine feminine and divine masculine, specifically. And then we've got the Emperor, who is connecting Chokmah and Chesed. So those of you who understand Kabbalah, that's awesome. Those of you who are interested in it, it's going to be really good to understand these symbols as individuals and then look at their placement on the tree. And that's how you can understand the energies and how they interact with each other. Because none of the aspects of the tree or the paths or the Sephirah or any of that is meant to be thought of in isolation. All of these aspects that I'm describing here, all the aspects of the tree, they're meant to be thought of as a family, as a unit, right? But the more that you know about the individual pieces of this machine, the more you understand how the machine works. So there's connections here, there's patterns here, and this can all be observed. And if you don't know much about this, of course, it just sounds like I'm saying words, and that's fine. But if you do understand this, what I'm pointing out is how important it is to utilize the tools that you have, right? You can learn about this information to the point where it becomes super practical and you'll know what to do with it, right? You'll know what to do. Now you can use these cards as magical tools. Now you can sit down and meditate on how this energy is moving, You can allow consciousness to have a space to really examine these specific behaviors of energy and find them in your own life. This is how you bring the tree to life, is when you understand what the Sephirah or what the path represents, and then you connect it with an experience that you've actually had. When you're able to connect the Sephirah and the path with an experience that you've actually had in real time, now you can understand the tree and make it personal. So that means if you're having an experience that you can connect with the tree, you'll know that that's the specific energy behind that situation. Now you can know what to do with it. Now you can know how to adjust it if need be, how to balance it, how to enhance it, how to take it away, right? So the tree itself, it doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's just a system of organized concepts. It's a system of organized concepts. And when you understand those concepts and you can connect it with your actual life, you have something that you can work with and shift. It's a tool, it's a device. I hope this makes sense. Peace, Alora. Always good to see you, Alora. You can hop on whenever you'd like. I'll send you the link if you want. My Gnosis says, I'm going to definitely get into it after Cosmic Doctrine. Right now I just play audiobooks while I sleep. What book is that? Capri says, any tips with getting started with the Kabbalah? Yeah, understand the pattern first. Try to memorize the names of the spheres and where they're located. Try to memorize what planets they're attached to, and do your best to learn about, as far as you can, a simple breakdown of what each Sephirah is. It's going to take some time to really process, but just start with the picture, right? Start with the diagram, learn the names, learn the position of those planets. Start with the Sephirah, and once you really get a good understanding of the Sephirah, then start learning the paths. By the time you get to that point, the study will be self-directed. It'll tell you how to learn it. The tree tells you how to learn it. Rocky Jones says it's a patriarchal paradigm, though. Maybe. I don't know how that... I don't think so, but I'm sure you have a good reason to say that. Fat Tony says that system is the next step. I think it's the final key to unlock all the doors for myself. I believe so. Teve Tai, peace. Yeah, so the Emperor, the Empress. Now let's check out this next duo, this next team, and how do they relate. The next one is the Hierophant, Il Papa. Il Papa. I still like Il Mago. Il Mago might be the coolest one. So Il Papa, the Hierophant, the Pope. What's this one talking about? With the Pope, we're talking about authority in traditional matters of spiritual and moral doctrine. Moral laws imposed by a higher power provide a useful framework for a healthy society, but they prohibit dissent through the application of severe censures. Right? So notice now, as we deal with these pairs, we've got one that is focused on ordering things. The magician, Il Mago, is focused on ordering things based off of its knowledge. The Emperor is based on ordering things based off his knowledge. The Hierophant, it's a framework of order, whereas we have the High Priestess, which is the container of the mysteries, right? Isis. We have the Empress, which is the form-giving, birth-giving creatrix. And we have the Lovers, right? The Lovers is next. So this duo here is the Pope and the Lovers. So if the Pope being the framework of a particular system that things are able to fit in, right? We could say that Kabbalah is a system. We could say that the NBA basketball is a system, right? Because you have to do certain things a certain kind of way, right? YouTube is a system. On the other side, we have the Lovers. And with the Lovers, it says human love. I like this one. Human love unmixed with lower concerns. What does that mean? What is human love unmixed with lower concerns? What are the lower concerns? Do we know what human love is? Have you ever thought about that? Like, are you experiencing human love unmixed with lower concerns? Do you have that in your life? Tvetai says left pillar is contracting, middle pillar is balanced, and right pillar is expanding. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Human love unmixed with lower concerns leads to the attainment of union and perfect happiness. It'd be a good idea to have an understanding of human love unmixed with lower concerns, because apparently human love that is mixed with lower concerns does not lead to union and perfect happiness. And can't we attest to that? I think we've all experienced a form of human love mixed with lower concerns, and most of the time it has led to an experience that, caused a bit of suffering. So human love unmixed with lower concerns leads to the attainment of union and perfect happiness. But when tainted by mundane matters, the result is division and dissatisfaction. Division and dissatisfaction. So, like I said, these are in pairs. I wonder how this human love, right, that leads to unity and perfect happiness, how does that contrast and complement this system and structure and framework of the Pope card, right? You got human love right here, pure love that leads to unity. And then you've got this framework, this order, this system, this structure, this government, this school system, this church system. Those two things balance each other. Like the Emperor balances with the Empress, like the Il Mago balances with the High Priestess. You see how these cards are more than just, random pictures, but they represent different complementary forces. The two cards put together represents Kether on their specific plane. So at the top you've got the Fool, which is closest to Kether. Then on the next level you've got the pair of Il Mago and the High Priestess. On the next level, you've got the pair of the Empress and the Emperor. On the next level, you've got the pair of the Hierophant and the Lovers. And it continues to go down like that. And what it's representing is that divine masculine, divine feminine, how they operate on that particular level. Useless Familiar says the 4 F's, as you say, a love free from that. Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I don't know. And I get it, right? As a child, you can experience that. And then your hormones start to kick in. And it's very hard to separate love from the effect of those hormones that have kicked in. That's the animal nature, right? But once you learn to transcend and overcome the animal nature, then you can remember what love means, unmixed from the need to fulfill feeding, fucking, fighting, and fleeing. Some people don't relearn that. They stay stuck in that lower nature. Framestar Film says, speaking of the cosmic doctrine, I was thinking about the initial statement regarding images. I believe that the figures and images at the back of the book can be used as yantras also, just as each of the cards. Yeah, and I would say that they're super effective. At least for me, when I look at them, my mind is kind of like error. I don't find anything in the database that relates to this. Oh, excuse me. Which can be great because that causes cognitive dissonance. And there's no better way to tap into the subconscious quickly than causing some cognitive dissonance. We Grow Natural Family, peace. We Grow Natural Family says, yes, great topic tonight. Hey, Travis and everyone. Cool beans. So, I mean, we could keep going all the way down the list, and you'll keep seeing the same things. I invite you to do your own study, right? Maybe lay out the cards and just observe the images and meditate on what they mean to you. Like I said, everything in this book I don't agree on 100%, but for the most part, it adds very interesting perspective to the relationship of these cards. The next pair would be the Chariot and Strength. The next pair would be the Hermit and Wheel of Fortune. And what happens there is it hits a point where it restarts. It goes back up. All the way down. All the way down. And when it comes to reading tarot, see what again, this is not about logical memorization. I said this before. We're taught to learn by logical memorization of data, right? And we think that when it comes time to talk about things or understand things, we got to go back into the database and pull out a specific piece of data and recall it from memory. But that's not how genius works. What you actually want to do is observe the patterns and the connections, right? You want to see this data, but find the underlying patterns and connections. So that way you learn how to read patterns. What that means is that no matter what you're presented with now, if you look at it from a pattern reading perspective, you can make sense of it. Likewise, when it comes to learning the tarot, what you're actually learning is how each card represents a different slice of the totality. Each card represents a different slice of the totality. And if you understand each slice, now when you mix them in a certain pattern against a question or against something that you want to find out, you can now read the energy behind those patterns together. So it's not specifically going to mean, since you pull the Mage's card, that doesn't mean, now I'm someone who understands the patterns of nature and human psychology. you take the energy behind that definition and you apply it to your situation. Oh, yeah. I hope that this is information that you find useful and appropriate, for sure. Etheric asks, what book is that? You've definitely helped me understand tarot on a deeper level. It's called 123 Tarot. 123 Tarot. It's by Donald Tyson. I went on a tarot book buying spree, and I bought like all the tarot books that I could find, and I just kind of go through each of them so I can have a real comprehensive understanding on these symbols. And this is one that I was reading recently. And like I said, it gave me some good insight on certain things, and he has his own system of how he reads. Just like anything else, it's good to remember that everybody has their own specific way, right? And you have a choice. You can take somebody else's specific way and do what they do, or you can analyze somebody's specific way, take what makes sense, right? And not necessarily cling to it, but have it there for reference, right? Have it for reference, and then learn some more from something else, then learn some more from something else, and then find what relates behind all those different things. All right, so let's see. Peace, Matthew Watson. Okay, all right. So, just going back to what I was saying about consciousness and energy in the very beginning of this stream, the reason I showed all that is to understand that even though we went through all that, none of that is consciousness either, right? Consciousness is something that is absolutely out of this world, beyond all of this. Consciousness has nothing to do with this. All the tarot, all those different cards are showing you, like I said, different slices of the vibration of what we call reality. And it's a bird from a bird's eye view, like somebody said earlier. All the tarot are different slices of what is possible in reality. And below that, you have the atmosphere of your mind, the atmosphere of the body, the atmosphere of your life, the atmosphere of the outside world. All of those layers of the outside world, your life, your body, your mind, will operate under one of those patterns or a combination of the patterns that the tarot represents. That's how reading tarot works. When you're able to pull these cards in a combination and interpret what they mean, what you're really reading are the patterns that are influencing mind, body, life, environment. And that's why I said at the beginning, the way that I see it, the outside world, my immediate environment, my body and my mind, those are all one thing. When you talk about the oath of the abyss, that's how you have to see it. All of that stuff is one individual thing. So what consciousness is observing is the energy behind the movement of all those things at once. All those things at once. That is being above it and looking at it from a perspective that is not within it, a perspective that is non-attached. Because to look at it from within it, you believe you're a part of it. You believe you're a part of it. And if you believe you're a part of it, then you believe that you're responsible for the karma. You identify yourself with it. I remember Brother Panic talking about, interpreting the Egyptian philosophy of how in the afterlife they weigh your heart against a feather. Well, what that really is saying is, when you pass on, right, when the body is completely finished with its work, do you still identify with the body? Do you still identify with the experiences that happened? Do you believe that all that was you? Do you believe that you did all those things? In other words, do you believe that you're consciousness, or do you believe that you're matter? And it's not even belief like, hey, what do you believe? It's more of, what are you resonating at? Are you still behaving as matter on the essential level? Because by the time you get up to that level, you're supposed to understand that all that was an illusion. But if you haven't figured that out, it's not that you're going to get sent back. It's not that you're going to be punished. You're going to call that upon yourself because you believe that's what you have to do. Oh, geez. Y'all just deleting all kind of folks. What's going on with that? Oh, yeah. So, I suppose now would be a good time to ask any questions or any comments or anything like that. Gavros SS God, peace. Siddhant Vishwakarma says, hi dear, please tell me Surali current feelings for me. I don't even know what that means. What is Surali current feelings? Thank you, Posh Proper. Posh Proper says, what messages are you wanting to give people? What messages are you wanting to give people? Well, I would say the message of this live stream would be a big one. Like the title says, you are not the body. A lot of what you experience, all of what you experience, is a play of energy, and you really have no part of it. You're just observing it, for better or for worse. Even if we think about free will, right? You think that, oh, I have free will because I have the choice to make this decision to do this, that, or a third. Sure, it appears that way, but you have to consider what initiated you to have a choice. Why do you prefer macaroni and cheese over hot dogs, right? Something caused you to feel that way. Then you have to go back and think, what caused you to feel that way? And you have to keep going. And what you'll find is that those are all echoes of something that happened before you had anything to do with it. All this is a play that's just going on. And we're merely observing it. We're merely observing it. Rocky Jones says, where does the soul relate to the concept of the matter and consciousness in your definition? So you have to analyze what that word soul means to you. If you were to ask me, then I would say that soul would be the consciousness aspect. The soul would be that consciousness aspect. Both soul, consciousness, whatever we're going to call it, those things are not present here. They're not present here. Here is the world of energy. the world of movement, the world of patterns and manifestation. The soul is not here. It is observing this, but it is nowhere that can be pointed to or identified with. It can't even be described. It is the thing that exists when all of this is no longer. Jacon Bascon says, question about an experience I had. Saw an energy being in space while astral projecting that told me I had to go back to Earth. Had a bunch of colors. I may have missed the question. Zero says, Trav, I recently found a book about quantum sorcery. I want to buy it, but what do you think about quantum sorcery? That's a word, that's a title. What's the definition of that word? What does quantum sorcery mean? The best way to find out is to buy that book and see what you think about it. You get what I'm saying? Like, what is quantum sorcery? That's a cool title that somebody made to describe their method of doing the same shit. Check it out, test it, see if it's useful and appropriate. If not, consider that you paid your tuition to learn that lesson. Quantum sorcery is probably just a name for something else that already exists. Jacon Bascon says, also, do you know what the white room I astral projected to that had relatives in it has a glittery atmosphere? I'm going to answer your question with a question. Even if I told you something, how would that, what are you hoping to get from that? Is this going to make that experience, what are you looking for here? What are you looking for here? Because, like, let's just say I took a different route and I just said a name of a place, right? I said it was the 5th level of Ashtar Z. Now what happens? Now that I gave you that answer, now what happens? I'm not trying to be an asshole. What I'm trying to do is to help you think about what is your intention for needing to know that piece of information. Perhaps there's a different question that you could ask that would be more useful and appropriate. Posh Proper says, do you believe lack of free will essentially? Yeah, for most people, I believe that free will is a word that we use to make ourselves feel better, for sure. Framestar Film says, interesting to think and feel we are the expression of consciousness working as tools to engineer reflected expressions of that hidden consciousness that drives the machine. It's a sobering thought, right? Puts things into perspective. Honestly, I think it takes away a lot of anxiety and stress. It takes away a lot of anxiety and stress. Rocky Jones says, so the soul is unidentified and the consciousness is what is seen and can be observed. So the consciousness is what is seeing and what is observing. And we can say that's the same thing as the soul. But it's not something that you are going to be able to define or explain. It isn't meant to be at this level. Because look, we describe and explain stuff based on the things that we see and feel and experience here. If the soul was never here, ever, then we don't have anything to go by, right? We don't have anything to explain it with. My Gnosis says, do you recommend tapping into Israel Regardie books, Trav? Just trying to build up my library for the future. Israel Regardie is very informative for sure, right? Like some of the art authors of his time, if you have the stomach to digest how he writes, you're going to learn a lot of stuff. If you don't have the stomach to digest what he writes, then maybe come back to it when you have more of a foundation in Kabbalah. Now, if you can get through Mystical Kabbalah and how Dion Fortune wrote that book, you'll do pretty good with Israel Ricardi. Posh Proper, thank you. Posh Proper says, what prompted you to learn all this? Also where? To be honest, I had questions when I was young, and there was no person to give me answers that were sufficient. Like, that's the long story short. Just like most of us, I grew up and went to church, and I had experiences with entities as a child, and I didn't have answers from anybody. So I had to figure it out myself. My curiosity does not end, so I just had to search and search, and I was willing to search everywhere. I did what I could at school as far as looking at books on different gods and mythology of Egypt and Greece and Rome. And then when the internet came out, right, I figured out how to order books, and I found, of course I went to the dark side first, the Satanic Bible and the Necronomicon. And I just kept digging and digging and digging. And of course, after digesting so much information, you start to see patterns. And I started to follow the patterns and learning how to interpret these patterns and make sense of the patterns. And here we are, after over 20 years of studying patterns. Hazard Pie, fresh out the hot grease and moisturized. Peace to you. Hazard Pie says, hi, please could I have some examples of using or identifying the paths in mundane situations? Yeah. I think probably the most relevant to understand is the 30-second path. The 30-second path. So what you want to do is get a book on path working. I just so happen to have a bunch of them right next to me, right? You can get a book like this, which is called Path Working by Ted Andrews. This is a great one as well. It's called The Shining Paths by Dolores Ashcroft Nowicki. There's even one called Simplified Kabbalah. Again, Ted Andrews. And basically, what path working is what I described earlier. Learning about the symbols that are associated with these paths, meditating on them, concentrating on them until you find the essence of what's behind all that imagery. And hopefully in doing so, you'll be able to connect it with personal experiences. And once you do that, you won't have to use what was in the book. You have your own personal experiences to connect with those paths. And the 30-second path is an experience of that's where you truly learn where, in order to take your consciousness to a different level of being, you have to assume a different form and leave behind the comfortable earthly stuff that you're so used to. So an example would be you'd sit there and you think about the 30-second path, and you'd meditate on the fact that you'd have to die. You'd have to lose your physical body. You go through that process. You'd visualize yourself, dying. They put you in a casket. They bury you. See your family at your funeral. Everybody cries and they walk away. They put the dirt on your grave. It becomes nighttime, and there you are, still in that casket. The next day appears. You're still in the casket. You get the next night. And eventually time just kind of goes by. The worms start eating your body. The bacteria starts to digest your body. And all that happens until you're just bones in a fancy dress or a nice suit. Then what? Then what? Do you stay there forever? Or does your imagination expand? Does your consciousness continue? Right? What would happen next? Where would you go? What would you encounter? Would you roam the graveyard just floating around aimlessly? Would you try to float off into space and learn about the planets? Basically, what you're seeing is that there's a transition between the life that you're used to and the life that is beyond. You literally have to take a new form, a new body. You'd have to move and communicate in a different kind of way. You adapt to the environment, right? And through all that visualization, what are you learning? You're learning that consciousness is not the body. You are not the body. The body belongs to the earth. That's why it returns there no matter what. But something else continues to go on. Let me know if that helps. Peace out, Lasange Descotes. I believe that I'm having experiences related to magic. Saw 100 birds at once, screeching. What are your thoughts on Hecate? Hecate is a great initiator. You will definitely find that if you're paying attention, she will show you all kinds of symbols using birds and dogs and keys and all sorts of things. And follow where they lead you. Try to find the essence. Try to find the message. Instead of it's not just seeing those amazing things. There's data associated with those things. So learn how to siphon the data out of those cool things that you're experiencing. Peace out, Fat Tony. Zero says, do you think beliefs and imagination are main tools to any kind of magic work? Absolutely. We're talking about perception. Perception affects reality, and then reality affects perception. Depending on what your perception is, depending on how you're framing the world, that's going to decide what results you get. And that frame is built out of your beliefs, and it's built on imagination. So if you don't have control over what you believe, and you don't have control over your imagination, then you really don't have control over anything. If you want to change, then yes, you'd have to change your beliefs first, and you'd have to use your imagination to do that. Rocky Jones says, so where does the soul reside? That's the question, right? That's what you have to go find. It's not a where. The soul is its own everything. It's its own place. It's not. Listen, this is what I'm saying. You can't describe or define that by anything that is here. You can't use the terminology of when, where, why, and how. It's completely different all the way. If you think that you can describe it, you're wrong. If you come up with something, that's incorrect. It's incomplete. The soul is that variable. It's that aspect of, it's something that the mind cannot comprehend. That's why I said earlier, you have to be able to transcend the mind and utilize a different set of equipment to grasp that type of information. It's metaphysical. It's above and beyond what your five senses can experience. So you got to expand. You got to expand. Posh Proper says, do Kabbalistic views hold real weight in your eyes? Absolutely. The Kabbalah and the things that I've learned from Kabbalah have given me frameworks to understand patterns of nature and patterns of psychology. So the evidence that I've gleaned by testing those views hold real weight in my eyes. Just like if you go outside on a very, very cold night with no clothes on, you're gonna feel it, right? It's gonna be ice cold on your body. So that's gonna hold real weight in my eyes, knowing that if I go outside and it's cold with no clothes on, it's gonna be uncomfortable. There's no debating that. Likewise, a lot of these Kabbalistic teachings that I've tested have shown me evidence that I have no choice but to believe. Jacon Bascon says, sometimes I get worried that I keep visiting these places too frequently. Not gonna lie, I kind of avoid it. So analyze the part of yourself that feels like that, right? What are you keeping yourself from? Some people believe that they don't deserve to be too happy, so they limit how much happiness they can take in. Some people feel like they don't deserve a certain amount of money, so they subconsciously prevent themselves from doing so. Analyze what you might be doing to perpetuate that feeling and that thought process. Void Stranger, peace. King Zeno, peace. Nefraya says, God, Trav, I'm studying shadow work and cyclomancy right now, but now I want to open up mystical Kabbalah. So much to do. You got all the time in the world. No need to rush, right? No need to rush. The important thing is to make sure that you understand what you're studying right now, and you'll get around to the other stuff when it's time. Ain't no rush. You have the rest of your life. Rocky Jones says, I find it interesting you don't really mention the soul. It's only consciousness and matter. Yeah, so you gotta, again, look at these words. What do these words mean? What are you referring to when you say soul? Most of the time, when I hear an explanation of soul, it sounds a whole lot like what consciousness is. So, I mean, soul is a concept that is a little bit later. Whereas you go back and look at Samkhya, which is the philosophy that I study and base a lot of what I teach off of. Samkhya teaches that the two original aspects of reality are consciousness and energy or matter. And when I say consciousness, I don't just mean you're looking around and you're hearing stuff. When I say consciousness, what I mean is it's again, difficult to describe, but it's that center point, that perspective. It is what's behind awareness. So if you can think about what awareness is, there's something that is being aware. Awareness is a tool. Consciousness is what's using that tool of awareness. What is the soul? If it really depends on where you're getting your definition from. If you're looking at body, soul, and spirit, then we're just looking at different levels or gradations between consciousness and matter. And Amali says, any good dream symbols lately? Certainly been seeing spiders. Certainly been seeing Brother Panic. I had a dream that his channel came back for some reason, but it was like somebody else pretending to be him. Yeah, not too many dreams for me, at least. How about you? Any good dream symbols from you lately? Posh Proper says, damn, exactly what my Jewish friend says about it. The insight and common outcome on those views are interesting. Thanks for the insight, brother. Take care. Thank you. Have a good night. Fat Tony says, the quickest shower I ever took as a free man. Hey man, celebrate and express gratitude for life. Well, that's a nice question. Soul Love asks, hi Trav, what is really the difference between manifesting our desires through imagination and belief versus just trusting the universe to place us where we're meant to be. Desire versus meant to be things. So truly the difference is perspective, right? Perception is reality. Reality is perception. The difference there you're talking about is what angle of perception, because it's both the same thing. It's both the same thing. On one hand, when you talk about manifesting your desires through imagination and belief, what are we doing here, right? What does that look like for you? Think about that right now. What does it look like when you manifest your desires through imagination and belief? Right? You're believing that something's going to happen. You're visualizing it in your head. You're repeating that process. You're putting yourself into that state. You're allowing it to happen. You're doing whatever you can to facilitate it, if that's how you believe things work, until it happens or until you give up. On the other hand, you said just trusting the universe to place us where we're meant to be. Really, it's the same thing. You're just looking at it from a different angle. Trusting the universe. In order to trust the universe, you have to have a belief that the universe is going to give it to you, right? In order to trust that the universe is going to place you where you're meant to be, you have to imagine what it looks like to be where you're meant to be. You have to imagine that the universe is doing this. I would say that those two things are the same thing. It's just a different angle of looking at it. Because you said trusting the universe, right, to place us where we're meant to be. That means right there's a belief hidden in that sentence. The belief that's hidden in that sentence is that you believe that there's a place that you're meant to be, and you believe that the universe is capable to get you there. That in itself is using imagination and belief. Same thing. Different angle. Hazard Pie says, wouldn't that be the Lovers and the Hierophant? I can see that. And Amoy says, just crazy, overwhelming dreams lately, like talking to everyone I ever met. Jeez Louise, what is that like? I just got a taste of an ice cream sandwich. Chocolate vanilla. Matthew Watson says, wow, I had a dream last night. View my dream body in third person with a spider woman chilling with me in place. I do not recognize the dream energy has been heavy lately. Yeah. Well, at least not for me, at least not that I remember. Certainly been feeling Lakshmi come through. Just been enjoying and appreciating that abundance energy. And like I said, this whole shift, feeling like energies from years ago have been resurfacing in a very pleasant way. Just basking in that, still finding old songs that I haven't heard in a long time. Enjoying this fresh air and bright sun. Rocky Jones says, have a good night. Pleasure catching you live. Have a good night, Rocky Jones. Thanks for being here. Renewable Image. Peace, peace. Okay, Jacon Bestcon, ask me a different question. And have an idea of like a clear direction that you want to go with it. He says, manifesting energy has been increasing last 2 years. Yes. Peace, Phoenix Rise. Love you too. Keep going. Keep going. Terrence says, you look like Hannah Montana. What does that even mean? See, Maestro says, Joan of Arc is heavier than usual for me. And I had a freaky experience with the saints, too. Not the saints. Lord. The Enchanted Rose says, I had a dream. Archangel Michael walked through the room I was in. He didn't say anything, just walked through and disappeared. What do you think that means? Well, it depends on a lot, right? It depends. Have you been working with Michael, right? What have you been doing as far as your spiritual work just before that dream? That matters. That matters. There doesn't always have to be words. Simply having a visitation is enough. I want you to go look into the energy of what Archangel Michael represents. There's a certain healing capacity. Perhaps you've been looking for some health improvements for yourself or somebody close by, right? Perhaps you've been trying to manifest some kind of healing for yourself. And if you saw his appearance in your dream, then rest assured that your healing is coming. Let me know in the chat. All right, Framestar Film says, gotta go and help direct the day. Trav and fam, peace. Peace, Framestar Films. Do great. Do great. As if you have a choice. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Hazard Pie says, had an image, not a dream, of a person holding a fish and it turned into a flower. Interesting. So, fish dwells in the water, and I'm thinking subconscious mind, right? Something that moves through the subconscious. And I think about a flower, which is something that goes through a process of being underground in the dark, in the earth, and breaking through into the surface. Both the water and the earth being of the feminine element, the air being of a masculine element, the conscious mind. I see something that was subconscious breaking through to the surface, being observable. Perhaps there's some type of shadow work you've been doing that works, that has been showing some results. MC Marshall says, did an 11-day ritual with him recently. Awesome, no bull experience. Phoenix Rise said, I would believe that is a good sign if Archangel is visiting you. Absolutely. But yeah, specifically for, like I said, healing. I don't know if that person is still here, but you know. Starlion says, I've been experimenting with my subconscious mind. I changed the way I communicate with it. Before I would speak things aloud, but now I just imagine images of my desires and I get it faster this way. Awesome. Awesome. That's what you're supposed to do, right? The subconscious mind does not talk English. It doesn't speak English. It speaks symbols. Good on you, right? Some of us have been hearing this for years. The subconscious mind communicates through symbols, repetition, and trauma, and still haven't utilized those three methods. Good on you. Good on you. Okay, so what we doing? Enchanted Rose says, yes, I'm here. I was reading the 6th and 7th book of Moses, and I was reading through it and studying the talisman in the book. Cool. So you invoked Archangel Michael into your dreams. It's pretty nice. Stick with it. Looks like you've got some skill, some talent there. GT Supreme says, last night I dreamt of red baby dragon sitting in its egg, and it said, protect the shine. This truly is the year of the dragon. I can get with it. Phoenix Rise says, trauma is like luxury initiation. Goodness gracious. All right. So, any other questions? Any other questions or concerns? Those of you who are students in my cyclomancy class will be meeting again this Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Make sure that you've read chapters 1 through 4, right? Don't get too hung up on the technical terms. Just go through the book, right? Maybe you've got the PDF. Maybe you're listening to the audiobook. Either way, just make sure that you've gone through those 4 chapters and have at least attempted 1 or 2 of those exercises, right? Make sure that you've attempted those exercises. Get ready for class. We're going to do a little bit of group work, and yeah, make sure that you're keeping up with that. Make sure that you're doing your meditation. Make sure that you're doing your study. Make sure that you're taking your notes. Make sure that you're reflecting on this whole process. Animali says, LOL, trauma will give you the VIP pass initiation. I love it. Starlion says, speaking of old songs, White Town, Your Woman came out in 97 and is a gem of a song. I'm not familiar with that one. I think you might have got me on one that I don't know. White Town, Your Woman? Where's my phone at? That don't sound like something I ever heard of. That might have been a small town. What? Oh, snap. I'm sorry, Alora. I was not even paying attention. Are you still there? Walk with me, Lord. My bad, Laura. I did not even see your message. I invited you on and I didn't even check. Starlion says, why do you think civilization before us wrote mythologies? Well, honestly, if you ask me, I think that the human beast has always been a very limited intelligence, very limited understanding. I think that's just how the human race is, right? We have a lot of potential, but as manifest and as a whole race, we're generally kind of dumb. So people who do come into contact with higher frequencies and spirituality, it's very difficult to explain what was witnessed to people who don't have the capacity to understand it. I'm sure that you've tried in your own life and you've witnessed this yourself. So instead of trying to teach and tell people about all these deep philosophies and theories and understandings, it's easier to place it into symbols, because the subconscious mind is able to accept the patterns of those symbols without logic interfering. So mythology is great because it allows the subconscious mind to have these symbols and have these stories, and over time glean out what those patterns and those stories represent. That's a whole lot better and more effective of a way than trying to teach somebody if they don't have the logical capacity. You just got to think, exoteric spirituality for the masses, there's varying levels of competence. Most of that is going to be on a low scale, right? Most people are not very smart. So mythology helps to bypass that logic factor and just go straight to the imagination factor. Best way to do it, if you ask me. You don't have to be a genius to look at a mythological story and get a message. It's a metaphor. The human mind understands metaphor a whole lot easier than anything else. We're hardwired to listen to stories. We're hardwired to pay attention to stories and allow our imaginations to work. Hazard Pie says, thank you for the book recommendations, and the symbol interpretation connects totally. Glad I woke up. Me too. Me too. All right, well, I guess this is a good stopping point. Glad that you enjoy the music. Always nice to spend some time with my favorite people. Hope that you're having an excellent week. Hope you have an even better weekend. Stay focused on your manifestations. Spend absolutely no time on the distractions, because those distractions are temporary, and you have a much stronger focus than to be thrown off your game by something that doesn't even really matter. And you're definitely much stronger than someone who is thrown off their focus by people who can't even see or think or understand. You lead the race. Maintain your frame. Be ever vigilant. Exert your influence. Always be leading. This is the way. This is the way. Let them folks do what the fuck they do. Inconsequential. Get your lesson, get your study on. Remember that you're built to win. You're built to win. You had to learn how to lose. You had to learn how to lose. You're built to win. So tap into that. Tap into that. Peace, Gerald Sombright. Always good to see you. Gerald says gonna get some rest. Good night, everyone. Good night, Trav. Thanks as always for bringing us this awesome info. This is the way. You're a born winner, not a born sinner. Don't let these folks confuse you. They don't know any better. They're scared, lost, and just trying to make sense of a world that they don't understand, right? Give them a little bit of grace, but don't get caught up in their nonsense, right? Don't expect them to jump on board with what you're studying either. You have to be of a certain capacity to handle this information. You have to be of a certain capacity to handle this information. So if it seems lonely, what you're actually doing is you're learning how to operate as one, all one, not alone, all one. The throne is not wide for 4 or 5 asses. One person sits there. One person sits there. Okie doke. Have a good night. Thank you for spending some time here. I guess I'll go play some Fortnite or something. Have a good night. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you. Peace.